Hi, this is Samir, and this is another quick tutorial for how to use and how to set up the foam and spray object. And in this presentation, I show you how to create foam for this scenario. And as you can see, I have a landscape here and a waterfall simulation with a little bit of a river. And this is a cached solution. So I bet I have it cached because in the end we have 63 million particles in this scene, which would take too long to simulate now, and so this is a cache, but it's pretty fast anyway. I have set the liquid particles display to 1%, so we don't see all the particles here. Actually, we see the mesh here, and I could turn it on and see the particles 1%, but I keep it off now because when we were working with the foam and spray object, the first thing we need, it's a constraint, is we need a mesher, which I already have in this scene, as you can see. And the next constraint that you have to set in the mesher is the temporarily cache, and you should set it to mesh. It will then calculate the mesh as usual, but then cache the result, so it doesn't have to update all the time whenever the foam object wants to access it. Alright, so just set up your simulation as usual, create a mesher as usual, and then set temporary cache to mesh. Well, and that's actually all we need, as you can see. And I now create a foam and spray object. You could also do it by going to the DPIT Effex menu and create here. I have a button here in my interface, so I just click once and then it is added, and the mesher and the solver are added to it directly, and it also instantly starts to calculate, as you can see down here. And the new thing in 1.7 is the mode setting, and we have two modes. First we have the animate mode and we have an edit mode. So now I would like to edit the foam emission, so I go into edit mode. Right? Okay. Well, but I know that my mesher has a grid cells resolution of 400 set. So in my foam and spray object I have only 150. I can do this simply for getting a quicker curvature estimation, right? So I could keep it now here, and as this is a cache solution, we don't have a vorticity here, and that's why no foam particles are actually generated yet, because there's no vorticity field. This is only available during simulation, not with cache simulations, but you will see that it works just the same way as all the other settings here. And I turn it to 0, so we don't have to worry about this now. But next thing I do is I set this to 250 just to get a better estimation, and we can see that it's doing the curvature estimation now here, so we have to wait. But it will only calculate it once, right? And that's a new thing, 1.7 calculates it once, and well, that's it. And I turn this off now, or I turn the landscape off. I keep the mesh here, and well, actually it should now generate my particles. Why is that? Good question. Rather strange now. Did I forget anything? Oh, come on, I have surely the display off for the foam particles. Yes, so I turn of course the foam particles display has to be on, and you can see now that we already have the foam and spray, the foam here generated, and that's a great thing. I can now tweak these settings here to generate my foam particles. So I can set a minimum curvature that where particles are emitted. You can see here And I could also set a minimum velocity of the simulation, directly taken from simulation, and now only get foam generated in areas where we have velocity higher than 5. And in order to check this, you could also turn on the liquid particles, for example, and set it to velocity here. And when I turn off the mesh to see the particles, we can see the velocity or the acceleration here of the particles, so we can approximately guess where they will be, but I just keep it off, and I know the situation now. So turn on the mesh again, and something new also here is I can set an offset to the surface. So I'm going to set it to 2, and you can see that they are lifted from the surface here, the particles. Come on. Like this. You can see it better here now. So put this to 0 again, and they're projected back on the surface. But I keep it at 4.1. That should be enough. Well, and it's really that easy. So you just have to tweak your settings now. I put this back to 1. I would like to have this a lot of foam here. Let me set this to 13 or 20, like this. Also could give this a random parameter here, and as I said before, the vorticity, minimum vorticity, works just the same as the velocity. You can just set a minimum vorticity where particles are created, so during simulation this will work. Well, next thing I could say in the end is I can now also tweak the sample density, so we get much denser distributions here, and I can set this higher for our final rendering, right? Well, now we have our foam particles, and that will move along with the simulation, not if it is cached, or only if you simulate or use a local cache. But well, you get the point how it's done, right? You see it's very easy, and it's now pretty fast and very straightforward to work with, and has a good workflow. Well, next thing, maybe I could also show it. First of all, you could of course now render these particles, these foam particles, with Ribery, the point renderer now in 1.7, or could also use a mesher. Yeah, let me just do this now. I turn this off, copy it here, the mesher, and set the particles type to foam, like this. Make it render only. Turn this on again. Probably the mesh from the mesher is gone now because I turned it off. But well, okay. I turn off the mesher here, and just to show you how it is done, get rid of the display first for the foam particles. And now, well, let's just I put this down to 1, the max neighbors, because I don't want the particles to merge too much. Set this down to 3. Put this maybe to 0.4, so smaller radius for a particle, and increase the resolution here to 800, because I will have a lot of individual particles now mashed, because this is both set to 1 and we have a pretty low particle radius. So I expect it to have a lot of small spherical mashing done. So I can set this higher, so I have enough resolution for this. Then turn on off the render only, and then just wait a second to make a surface question. Oh, we have how many? 1.4 million particles now, foam particles, to be mashed here. Takes a little while, of course. We're at the mashing already, so we should see it in a second. There you go. So here we have our particles mashed. Probably still too much, so I could turn this down. Smoothing radius to 2. I'll have to recalculate it now because I had set the temporal cache to mash here too. And I keep it like that. I just have to click on render only again if I really wanted to have it reconstructed. And now that I've set the smoothing radius lower, it's also generating the surface much faster. But okay, it's alright like that. Doesn't look very well here, but you get the point. You could also use a particle attach with render instances of spheres, which would probably give me what I wanted here now, but well, why not try it and show you how it's done. And well, I actually have to recalculate the mesh here because it is gone, as I've turned it off once. This will take a little longer, maybe a minute, so I will fast forward this. Alright, there we go. So we have our meshes now, and I could now of course just give them some materials. I have two here, one for the water and one for the foam, and just going to a different camera here and I'll render this. Now have my foam here. Of course, as I said, it would be much more appropriate now to use the point rendering of Rivery, because that's exactly the scenarios where it comes in very handy, and much lower overhead of memory consumption, and we can display much more detailed particles, each individual particles. Which is much better for foam because we have so tiny bubbles of foam here. Well, but that's how it's done. As you can see, very quickly set up and just easy to create, and I hope it helps.